Hello, my name is Rich Coleman. I am the host of the Prevention Corner, and we are so excited to be here with you this evening with a show that we're doing dedicating this to Black History Month. One of the things that we have been wanting to do for a while, and I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to do this, is to feature our local African-American female authors. We've got a couple that are just doing some fantastic work here in the community, in addition to their writings, and we're going to explore this whole scope of what it's like with being involved as a writer, as well as all of the things that go along with the whole process of publishing, but the challenges. And I think that's one of the things that I really want to get into, because we want young people to look at all of these opportunities that are available, how they work, how do you go about doing it, but also the dedication. But we also want to talk about the important work that is being written. Today we have with us a good friend, for a lot of different perspectives, Denise Eaddy-Richardson, who is the author of I Am Lifted. Denise, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about you. Let's talk about how your career, all of these challenges to write such an amazing book called I Am Lifted, A Journey to a Better Life. Talk to us about you, because there's some really issues and personal issues about your upbringing that you talk about in this book that we're going to get into. But talk to us about you.
Well, when I talk about me, I always think about my family, because I am the last of 9 children. And that is truly a position of just gratitude that I have in order to be that 9th child in my family. Because as you know, to have so many siblings loving you and promoting you and helping to develop your character in a positive way, it's just a blessing straight from God. So I've always considered my position in the family to be a privilege. And my early childhood was nothing short of wonderful. I spent so much time running through fields, playing in dirt, making mud pies, and talking to my siblings. I had to talk very early because everybody else was talking and I wanted to be heard also. Yeah. So it was a matter of, I had to hone those communication skills very early on. So even as a child, I was very enthusiastic about words. And once I learned to read, I just became a bookworm and enjoyed reading various authors, different genres, and wanted to write myself. There were a couple of times in my life that I actually said to myself, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write this book, you know, but it just wasn't there. It wasn't there. But when it became time for me to write I Am Lifted, it was more than I wanted to write a book. I felt at that point that I had to write a book. I was purposed to write this book. And even with that said, I sat down many days thinking about, what am I supposed to write? I know I'm supposed to write a book, but I don't know what I'm supposed to write about. So it just came, different parts and pieces just came along with the commitment that I would sit down daily to write. Sometimes I'd write 3 or 4 words, and other times it would just pour through. It was as though there was someone just guiding me and speaking to me and helping me to understand things. And as I understood things, I would write about things. So this I Am Lifted, A Journey to a Better Life, it's all about my personal journey to a better life. And it started with my daughter and I just kicking it one day, and I was saying, you know, it's getting time for me to retire. What am I going to do after I retire? And she said, well, you ought to be a life coach. You're the best life coach out there. Well, you know, she's my child, so she has to say good things about me. So I was thinking about that. I became excited. I said, well, you know, if I'm going to coach someone else's life, I need to start living my best life. You know, I need to start doing those things that would help me to cultivate the ability to spur myself on to another level. So in doing this, I started reading a lot of different authors, motivational people. I read I read books by, I can't even think of the author's name right now, but I read several of his books, and I read several of Deepak Chopra's books, and just on with that genre, just
noticed that because you quote scriptures throughout the book as you talk about your upbringing. And I can definitely I got a connection here with you because I'm in the middle of 10 and I'm number 5 with an identical twin brother. So we grew up in groups that the way my mother worked with the older ones who helped all along the way with all the rest of the young ones, but that challenge to fit, to feel I'm a part of this for the young ones was the challenge. And we had to be inclusive, not to lead them out and be involved with it. But you talked a lot about your father and his influence. Share with us how important that was, your father's impact in that role with the family and then because he was very involved in the church as a deacon, is that right? Yes. As a deacon, a strong deacon from the way I read it, from the readings. Talk to us about that.
My dad was a very spiritual man. He was a very spiritual man and a very loving man. And he grew up in the South. And he learned a lot of the things that were taught in the South at that time about how you raise your children. His quest was to be a hands-on parent, to be strong, and to be a role model for his children. He was all of that. He guided us into spiritual influences, and he guided us educationally. It was his thought that all of his children had to have some sort of higher education, and all of us do have higher education. But one of my dads, he was not a perfect man. And because he grew up in the South and he learned how to discipline children in the South, he was a whipper. I mean, that's just what he did. If things weren't right, you got a whipper,
Yes.
And he was very exacting about it. Everything just had to be the way he wanted it and the way he wanted it done. If it wasn't, there were consequences. And one of the pieces I write about in my book is that during my meditation, I learned how to meditate while I was writing this book. And meditation would take me wonderful places. But one time I was meditating, and I saw the face of my dad, and it was very angry. And I was really, really curious about that because my dad and we had a good relationship. We talked about anything that you can imagine we talked about. And I talked to my sister, who was like a spiritual guide for me also. And I said, I saw Dad in my meditation, and he was really angry. And she said, Dad is angry. Dad is dead. He's gone out to heaven. He is not angry. And so as I meditated over this and thought about it, I'm thinking, why is he angry? Why am I seeing him as angry? And as I meditated more, I did more self-discovery, one day it just occurred to me that the anger that you see is not Dad's, it's your anger acting. And I realized that when I look back through my adolescence, most of my adolescence was spent at home because, girls couldn't do much, for one thing. And the other thing, Dad was very protective, and I had a significant role in my household. I did the meals during the week because my mother worked. I was responsible for the cleaning. I was responsible, I paid the bills. Dad had me doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
I helped work on the farm if we needed to be outside. I worked outside, So my adolescence was spent just sort of cloistered in the house when I had this wonderfully free childhood, going places with my older siblings, doing things with them. When I was a kid, I went to football games every Friday night when I was in high school. I never went to I went to one basketball game. So it was a cloistered life, and I was mad about that. And I was mad about the beatings, the whippings that I had suffered as an adolescent because they tended to make me feel less than myself. And that led into when I got married, I had a situation where I felt again that I was abused. And because I think I had become sort of used to people not treating me well.
Sure.
And then one day I woke up from it. I woke up from it with my dad, and it was just like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm going to put up with this anymore. You know, and I gained strength. So after I made these discoveries, I also made other discoveries that my health, which I had been diagnosed with lupus, I had been suffering from pain every day. Pain either in my joints or in my muscles, pain every day. All of a sudden, I woke up one day and I had no pain.
Yeah.
You know, I was pain-free, and it was like a true revelation that when you harbor anger, that it does things to physiology. It works against your body, your physiology, and it causes you to have, it's a stress, it causes you to have disease, and it causes you to have dis-ease in life.
Yeah.
So through working through I Am Lifted and writing this book, it is indeed a journey to a better life for me, because things have improved significantly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that pain, that disease.
Yeah. And let's shift a little bit, because dads are important, but moms play such a significant role. And I can sense the influence of dad's structure and the foundation, but that sensitive side that moms bring to the table. Talk to us about moms, because when we look at today's world and the numbers that shed light on the single moms and what a lot of particularly young African American females who are going through alone raising children and the challenges that they face, the big picture of your foundation and how both mom and dad played a role into bringing you to where you're at today. When we look at the passages of what you went through and how you talk about your relationships and your daughter and how important that is, how important was mom's role with those 9 children and a very domineering dad? Because I know what that's like with being a pastor's son and that dynamic.
Well, I like to say that my parents bonded into a leadership team. Okay. And my father was the head of the team. There was no doubt about it. The rules and regulations were set down by my father. So when we talk about the influences of my life, they were primarily with my father for a lot of reasons. When I was a kid, I was outside playing all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and very often I say that I realized who my mother was when I went to kindergarten. I said, "Oh, it's you," because she took me. And that I have 4 sisters.
Yeah.
They're all older than I am. The oldest one is 15 years older than I am. So they played a significant role in my upbringing along with my mother. But you know, my mother was there for all the PTO conferences, for all of the field days, and she brought sloppy joes and all the other stuff that moms bring to those kinds of events. So she was there. But in my adolescence, when she went to work, and she was working afternoons, when I came home from school, it was dad. Okay? And so she was pretty much weekend,
Okay.
but it was dad and me every day. So dad had a primary influence in my life in so many ways. And dad was, you know, he ran things, you know.
Yeah.
He was the leader, he ran things. But he was also the spiritual leader in my house. You know, my dad, both my parents were praying people.
Yes.
But my dad's faith was astronomical. As I mentioned in the book, when I was a little girl, he was without a job. And every day he was going to the gym and asking, you know, about a job. And the guy would say, "No job today, Edie," because he had seen him so much, he knew who he was. No job today, Edie. Well, one day my dad went to work and he told me, "Look, there's a job today because I've got 9 kids at home and $10 in my pocket. There is a job today." And that was the day that he was hired in June. So, you know, Dad had faith that moved mountains, you know, and he always lived his life by faith.
Well, you know, and that's so embodied in how you write about the relationship with dad and that whole scope of family and the dynamics from a child's eyes going into young adulthood and then to now that I am an adult, I have these responsibilities, and I'm seeking to find myself. And as you write about I am lifted, you take us through these passages that are so unique with life lessons. Talk to us about the foundation of the book, and when you talk about life lessons and a life coach, because as you go through the passages, you see how you reflect scriptures to events and things that are important in your life, but also the reflection for others. Talk to us about life lessons, because that's at the core of how did I get to writing this book?
Well, there are some of my life lessons here and some of the life lessons of others. I think one of my life lessons that I learned when I was writing the book was I went through a situation with a couple of friends, and they were getting divorced, and they were having a hard time with this divorce. And events transpired rather, and I was thinking, well, you know, this is so unfair. This is so unfair what she's doing. And, you know, in doing that, I had kind of set an opinion that it was so unfair. And when I saw her, I greeted her, but I didn't greet her the way I normally greet her, you know. And I know it hurt her over time that I had done this. And then when I came to think about it more, I started thinking about, you know, the failure, there was a failure there. And the failure wasn't hers, not with me. The failure was mine. Because instead of, you know, trying to talk to her and say, you know, are you really sure that you want to do this like this? I had formed an opinion, formed a judgment, and just sort of executed my judgment through coldness. And that's not the way to reform any situation. That's not a way to be helpful in anywhere. You know, I learned lessons. One of the best lessons that I learned in my life was when I was in, I think it was 9th grade, and there was a girl that I just persecuted her. There was something about her I just did not like.
That story was amazing,
and
knowing what you do.
And I persecuted her, and I'm a guidance counselor, and I talk to kids all the time about being bullied, and being bullying, and, you know, all of this, being the bully. But at any rate, I did these things, and one Sunday I was sitting in church, and it was as though a voice spoke to me saying, what are you doing? You can't do this and say you love me. You know, so then I had to go back and get an audience with her, which was very difficult to do.
Because I remember as I read that passage, I actually went back and read it again. I said, oh my goodness, Denise, she's actually saying, I have to correct this.
I had to correct it.
I was a bully, and this is wrong, and I need to get some friends because she doesn't trust me.
Right.
And she doesn't trust that what I might say because of how my actions have been.
Exactly. So I had to solicit others to get an audience with her. You know, and then in their presence, I had to say, you know, I have mistreated you. I've been wrong, and I am so sorry. And I hope that you will be my friend. And she was so large. She was so large to just reach out to me and say, you know, it's okay, we can be friends.
Because at first, she didn't trust you.
No, she didn't.
And she says, we're going to have to just kind of see how this plays out.
But she did it. She reached out, and she, you know, we're still in communication today. She's on my Facebook.
So as you reflect that story and knowing how many thousands of young people, and from those who have read the book and the reviews, who talk about how the book has provided an avenue of self-reliance as well as I can make this, even though I've had some steps that kind of went backwards a little bit. I have to
in the wrong direction.
I need to start not going backwards, but I need to move forward. And these lessons about life are helping me do that. Because it's an easy read, and after you've read it, it's because I just read it again. The first time I got it, I couldn't put it out. I read it, and I was like, wow, this is Denise.
All right.
Okay. But I understood because knowing our own relationship and the things that we have been involved with globally here in the community, but understanding the person. This really kind of framed how important these life lessons are to giving back. And I think that that's what I get from the passages, because I want you to read in the opening of the book this poem that you wrote, I Am Lifted. Could you read that for us?
Sure. I have to take off the glasses.
Okay.
I am lifted above the everyday drudgery of life. I am lifted above the smallness of vision. I am lifted above the boundaries of separation. I am lifted above being satisfied with little knowledge of God. I am lifted above oppression, fear, and guilt. I am lifted above an ordinary life. I am lifted above a babbling mind. I am lifted above pain and pressure. I am lifted above sadness and despair. I am lifted into purpose. I am lifted onto God's highway. I am lifted by the Holy Spirit safely into the arms of God.
I love that. I love that. What a great way to open the book. I mean, that set the tone for what you were striving to do, was literally opening up your heart and pouring out, this is me. This is me. And I'm going to tell you about things that I'm not proud of, but I want to show you the path that helped me get to where I'm at and where I'm continuing to strive to be. Because there is no end game to this in life lessons. And that, when you look at the scope of content, of what you've shared with us in I Am Lifted, how important has that been when you come across someone who may not have any hope and they've reached the bottom and they feel like, I can't go any farther, I don't know what else to do or where else to turn. We're dealing with a struggling economy. We're dealing with so many things around us that people make bad decisions and bad choices. And when you can interact with someone and think about these life lessons that you reflect in your writings, how important has that been when you can look in their eyes, because you're a people person, and I know that about you, and you have to say, I need to know how to help in whatever context that I'm in, so that I can help. How much has that been a part of your moving beyond the writing of the book, but now let's implement?
Right. It's of gigantic importance, because in writing this book, it helped me to identify with people on so many levels, and to have a deepening of spirit, deepening of heart for people. I've always helped people all my life, but having an appreciation for the things they go through and understanding that what you go through, and one of the things that I said in the book is my driving principle is that all things work together for good. All things. So where you are right now is where you're supposed to be in order to learn the lessons that you need to learn. Now there are a lot of promises that we have through Scripture in the Bible. It tells us that we're never burdened with things that we're unable to bear, because there's always a way made so that we can escape from the burden that we have. So in helping people to understand this, it's helping them to move forward. Once they realize, I have this, but I'm still here. You know, I'm strong enough to do this. I just need to look up. I need to have an appreciation for the strength that God invested in me when He made me. You know, I say in here in several different ways, when God made me, He made me strong. He made me courageous. He made me with purpose that nobody else has. You know, He made me unique. And so what we have to do, there's another passage in here that says, you know, it's time for me to throw out the junk. It's time for me to throw out the malice. It's time for me to throw out the hatred. It's time for me to throw out the anger. It's time for me to throw out the self-loathing. You know, it's time for me to just get rid of the junk. And once we start de-junking, we just feel so much better. And then then we become lifted, you know, because we become light and able to attract light, which is goodness and positivity.
And that's the essence of you as the person and your reflections in your writing. Talk to us about the challenges of getting through the process of writing the book itself. Because you first, the manuscript, and that I gotta write, I gotta get up. I could sense at times, I really didn't feel like it, but I was driven. I had to get up and I had to keep pressing to get it down. I gotta get the ideas down so that I can map it and then the process. What obstacles did you face as you were preparing and going through this process?
This was so much a process of love that, you know, once I make the commitment to do it and to do it faithfully every day, I'm not going to say that every day I had something, some great idea. Some days I had no ideas, and other days I had ideas and I would write things down and say, did I really write that? Because I felt at times that I was just guided in my writing, you know. So there are pieces of it that I look at and I say, whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
But this is a book that I self-published, and I did all my own editing, you know, so that was a particularly laborious piece,
Sure.
you know. And when I wrote it, it wasn't written in any particular order. There was no order to it. I mean, there were just little bits and pieces, little, you know, I had at work, sometimes things would come to me, I'd have them on sticky notes, I'd take it home, put it in the book, you know, in the notebook that I was writing in. I carried the notebook with me, you know, but it came in bits and pieces without order or organization. So one of the things that I said in the book is sort of like a diary, but it's not in order, but it started having themes, you know, themes of oneness, themes of faith, themes of surrender, themes of hope, just various themes that came to me. And so that's how I started putting it together after a while, thematically. I never sat down to think, okay, I'm going to write on this theme today. I never once did that. I never thought that, okay, I need to do something here to make this better. I just wrote as it came to me. I wrote as I meditated, as I read, as I, you know, searched my soul and explored my faith and my spirituality. And through the process, I'm lifted. And I do want to talk a little bit about the title line, Lifted.
Sure.
Because initially, I had a title one day, and I guess it was about bedtime. I said, oh, that'll be the title, and I went to bed. And the next morning, I woke up and I was saying, okay, what was that title? What was that title? And I couldn't remember that title for anything. But I was writing, I did a lot of exercising during this time too. So I was riding my bike and just riding through a wonderful place that seemed like, much like a cathedral to me. And it came to me, I am lifted. I said, that's it. You know, I've been lifted through this process. This has been a great process for me. And when I got the cover, I selected the cover, and I had I Am Lifted on the title. And I started thinking about it, and I said, no. I am lifted, Denise, but truly, I am is the great I am.
Yeah.
Being lifted,
Yeah.
you know, through revelations, through exaltations, through just an appreciation for how good God is and has been in my life and will continue to be, and the affirmations that He gives me daily.
And as we're getting ready to wrap up, The book is available at Amazon.com. You also have a website. We're going to put all that information up on the screen as well. And you've been involved in several different presentations with other authors. You did one here in Ann Arbor last year. Are you available to come up to speak to groups?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I am available. I have spoken with several groups, and it's always a good sharing time because I speak and then I have other people talk about, the book and how they felt about the book. And I've had some marvelous reviews from people. I've had one woman tell me, I'm not a Christian. I don't adhere to that faith, but this lets me know that I am still connected to God. And that's a wonderful thing to me. I've had people seek me out through Facebook, and yes, I'm available.
Fantastic. We're going to put that information up on the screen as well, that you will get to her website, locations where you can purchase the book. And before I close, I also have to say from a personal perspective how much that Phyllis and I thank you for being my son's counselor. Alex said, I'm going to put the picture up on the screen. Love him dearly, and through all of the ups and downs that we went through with the high school years, you were there for us, and it made the whole process, when we were nervous and a little bit at ease, oh my goodness, are we going to make it? That you helped us through that. And after reading the book and life lessons, I said, it worked. It worked. So on behalf of the Coleman family,
Oh, my pleasure.
thank you so much for all that you did and for all of the thousands of young people that have you mentored and helped here in our school system and all of the things that we've done. Again, this is Rich Coleman. I'm here with Denise Eaddy-Richardson, the author of the book, I Am Lifted, A Journey to a Better Life. We're going to put the information up on the screen, the website, contact information. Thank you for joining us tonight here at this episode with featuring African American authors during Black History Month 2013. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time here at The Prevention.